We've chosen enthralling stories that will pique your interest and make you think. If you've been missing out on this week's news, this video will catch you up. Let's cut the small chat and go into these fascinating films. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for calling the police on my boyfriend's family? Last year I moved in with my boyfriend and his dad. My boyfriend and I were in a long-distance relationship for a few years, and I moved across the country to be with him after I finished graduate school. Due to such a large distance, I opted to sell my car and buy a new one after moving. When I did this, my boyfriend helped me out by loaning me some money to help pay the down payment, but I've since paid him back. Last week, my boyfriend's older sister, who lives in another state, came to visit and stayed in the house with us. This was my first time meeting her, and I thought she was very nice, but I didn't get to know her well. 2 days ago, my boyfriend and I were running errands together, and her sister called him to ask when he would be back so she could borrow his car to go hang out with her friends in a town about an hour away. He told her it would be a while, and since then asked if it was okay to borrow my car. My boyfriend asked me, and I told him I was not comfortable with that and to tell her no. My boyfriend did tell her no. I heard the entire conversation. Well, a few hours later, my boyfriend and I got home, and my car was gone. I was shocked, and my boyfriend was confused. When we went into the house, his dad informed us that he gave my boyfriend's sister the spare key to my car that was in the lockbox because she said she needed to go somewhere. My boyfriend told him that she asked to drive my car and that we had told her no, so he didn't understand why she was allowed to take it, and his dad said that since my boyfriend helped pay for the car, that it was therefore partly his, which meant his sister had the right to drive it as well. I was absolutely livid, and I couldn't believe that anyone would do something like this. My name is the only one on the title, insurance, etc., as I am the sole owner. My boyfriend told his dad to call her and tell her to bring my car back immediately, and she said she would be home soon. Well, after 2 hours, I called the police and reported my car stolen because I was worried that if it got damaged or something, then I would be forced to pay the repairs even though it wasn't my fault. My boyfriend's dad and sister were ticked about this, and they accused me of trying to get them arrested. They are now demanding that I apologize to them and tell the police that it was all a misunderstanding. But I really don't want to because I feel that they've tried to take advantage of me. My boyfriend agrees with me, but he even said he thinks calling the police to report the car stolen may have been too far. Am I the a-hole? Not really. I don't think so. Maybe give it a little bit more time than just the 2 hours, although that might be cutting it close. She did everything that she did. I think she did everything she did right. They were making a lot of assumptions, and they were being very entitled, the dad and the sister. Even though the boyfriend helped pay for it, she was the sole owner of this. And they really didn't have the right to take this. They were really taking advantage of this. After calling the police on them, though, she's going to have to live with this. She's not the a-hole, but this is probably going to have some big consequences moving forward. Story 2. I finally told my father's infantilizing friend that I hate him. Years ago, my dad met Harold through mutual friends, and they hit it off. I was 18 and in college when I met him, and we never had a close relationship. However, he always seemed to think of himself as a family friend, and was extremely infantilizing and condescending towards me. Every time I saw him, I tried to tell myself it wasn't that bad, only for him to prove me wrong less than a minute later. Harold would disrespect my boundaries, say things like, "You're not 19, you're a baby," while I was talking to other people, and patronize me, my education, or my hobbies whenever he had the chance. He always noticed that annoyed me, to which he playfully asked if I hated him. I always said no, but only for my father's sake. The final straw came the day that Harold interrupted a barbecue to say, "I really like you, even though you're an impolite brat." I was 20 years old. I'd been quiet all day working on a paper during the barbecue, but replied patiently and politely whenever anyone addressed me. And even if that hadn't been the case, I knew he didn't have the right to talk to me like that. After that, I started making an effort to avoid any events I knew he'd be attending. Yesterday was my father's girlfriend's birthday. They threw a small lunch party at my dad's apartment. I went there with my fiancée and our 6-month-old son. Harold was there. I hadn't seen him in months, but he still talked to me as if I was a dumb child. Never mind that I'm engaged, a mother, and 26 years old. I spent the whole party ignoring his helpful advice about me being too young to get married or be a mom. It helped that most of the other guests seemed to disagree with him. My baby spent most of the afternoon sleeping. There's a bassinet in my old room. He woke up hungry, so I went to breastfeed him and excused myself from the party for a while. I got back to jokes and comments, all from Harold, about how I was probably struggling if my son was managing to leech me away for so long. He went on to interrupt a conversation I was having with another of my dad's friends to question pretty much everything about my parenting. He doesn't even have custody of his daughter, by the way, and to make more comments about my age. I decided I couldn't take it anymore after he asked if I thought about giving my baby up for adoption. I got my son and told my fiancée we were leaving. We said goodbye to everyone except Harold. When we got to the door, Harold came to ask why we were leaving. I tried to make up an excuse, but he kept trying to make us stay. After a small back and forth, he jokingly asked if I hated him. And this time I said, "Yes, I do. Can we go now?" He didn't say anything, and we left. On the way home, my fiancé said he was proud of me. My father called this morning to say the opposite, and we had a small fight, but ultimately decided to drop the subject. I'm sure this isn't over, but if it keeps going, it won't be because of me. This is far from my proudest moment, and a small part of me regrets it, but I'm done with that guy. Finally, standing up for yourself is not a bad thing. This person did everything in their power to really put up with this person for the father's sake. It probably might have helped to be a little more honest about things or a little more tactful over the years, to say something like, "No, I don't hate you, but I find this behavior of yours annoying because blah, 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 blah." If you were just saying this just to get this person out of your way so you could leave, it might have been a little too harsh, but at least you're standing up for yourself. It kind of came to a head there.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 1. Am I the a-hole for firing my brother after he proposed at my wedding? So, a bit of a background. I own a plumbing company and hired my brother 3 years ago. He was jobless after the pandemic, and I offered for him to come work for me. He was 22 at the time and is now looking to become a master plumber and start his own business. At my wedding, which he was the best man, he decided that during his speech he would give us all a big surprise and decided to propose to his longtime girlfriend. My wife and I were appalled. We both feel like he stole the shine from our day. Everyone else in our families were so excited and kept taking pictures with her, looking at the ring, etc. I decided to fire him the very next day. He still doesn't understand why. He claims I'm being selfish and irrational, and our parents agree. They're saying that business should be separate from our personal lives. But I just can't overlook what he did and how he ruined our day. Am I overthinking this? Edit. I should have mentioned this, but he will be getting severance. He's still my brother, and I wouldn't let him lose his home over this. But as a small business, I can't imagine seeing him every day at work. Not now, at least. Not only are you the a-hole, but that's also pretty illegal. I'm pretty sure he would have a case if he brought this up before a job board. What he did was very much wrong. He shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have taken away from your day. Obviously. But this feels like retaliation. And this, retaliation against something that has nothing to do with the business. This guy needs to either grin and bear it, or he needed to confront the brother outside of work and tell him how he felt. Did they do that? Does it say that anywhere in the story? I can't see. But it should have happened outside of work. As much as you hate it, this was the wrong move. What do you think? Story 2. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen, goes both ways. My new manager at work is one of those people that absolutely has to be in control. Even when you're exceeding every scorecard measure, keeping your head down, not putting a toe out of line, she still asks you to come to a meeting to discuss some minor issue or another. Recently, she pulled me into a meeting to discuss me being late for work. Protocol is to call in, say we'll be late, then submit a schedule adjustment request when we arrive. She accused me of not calling in or submitting a request, but I was able to prove I did. Only instead of leaving it at that, she insisted I now needed to call her and explain why I was late. That's not the process. I told her, and she said she was making a new one. So now I call her at 6 a.m. on her day off to let her know I'm going to be late. She also had a meeting with me because my scorecard for a stat was 99 out of 100, with a target of 50. She had to point out the 1 out of 100 I missed. She also did the same for a handling time issue where I'm hitting an average of 600 seconds with a target of 1,500. She needed to tell me about a call I took too long on. Suffice to say, complaints have been raised to her manager. Following an incident where she was asked to follow up on something for me, and claimed if it's not in writing it didn't happen, I've been asking for everything in writing and repeat that mantra back to her when she claims to have told me something. Last week, she asked me to see her after my call. I walked over, and she wasn't there. So went back to my desk. She asked me why I didn't stay around, and I reminded her of the time she put in writing that I wasn't to spend more than 1 minute waiting for her if she asked to see me and was to go back to my desk to take calls, not wasting time. She asked me to come over again, and when I did, she wasn't there. This repeated twice more before my shift was over. Each time I documented, logged out at 14:35 p.m., came to your desk, you were not there, spent 45 seconds waiting, returned to my desk and took another call at 14:38 p.m. in chat. She messages me to ask what time I finish. I tell her it was 2 minutes prior, and she says we can catch up now. I tell her that my shift is over and ask if she'll approve an overtime pay for an out-of-hours meeting. She tells me not to be silly and it'll just take 10 minutes. I refuse and say if I don't get paid, we can do it tomorrow when I am being paid. She's typing, then not, then typing, then not, choosing her words. I know she's angry at being challenged, and she decided to employ one of the tactics she used when she managed a team for a company where this was a standard practice. Okay, well, if you'd like to go home now, I can always make it a formal meeting. A formal meeting where I work is code for a meeting with HR, documented on your record for misconduct and repeated issues. She thinks she's won. Not a problem. Make a formal meeting. Ensure I have 24 hours notice, send a formal invite, and I will bring a support person with me. I log out and leave, but not before grabbing screenshots and saving a copy of the chat logs. Next day, she called my bluff and had a meeting scheduled. I send it to my union rep, and she comes in on the day. HR sits down with us and opens with, "So we're here today to discuss some concerns. Your team leader asked you to attend an off-the-cuff catch-up 3 times, and for some reason you refused?" I quickly clarify what actually happened. My manager claims otherwise, and I repeat her mantra, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Then I supply the receipts. Her demands to put things in writing, her chat, my timestamps, my call logs, and her message to me afterwards. My union rep stares at the two of them with a small smile and asks, "So do you maintain the position that employees should attend meetings unpaid and that misconduct investigations are a good use of resources if they refuse?" HR said there may have been a miscommunication and that I could return to work. I have it put in writing that I am not accused of any misconduct and have been cleared of any false accusations with nothing documented on my staff file. Yesterday, my team was advised that our team leader had decided to pursue opportunities outside of the company, and we were getting a new manager. The manager tried to be a boss and failed. Just did everything the wrong way. I was really afraid that this employee was going to get the shaft from HR, even though they had everything documented. But as soon as they said union rep, ha ha ha. Nope, they were in for it. It's just a reason why at work, document everything you can. Keep the receipts. Because many times HR is not going to be your friend. They weren't going to be the employee's friend in this instance until they had the receipts and a union rep ready to clap back.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 1. Am I the a-hole for disabling the AirTag my father planted on me? I, 32 female, have an overprotective single father. I know he means no harm, but he's severely draining my energy. I promised to visit him every weekend after moving out to live on my own. This week, I found that he planted an AirTag, a location tracking device on my car, without telling me. I value my freedom and privacy very much. I often go out of my way to erase my social media presence. I make sure that only a handful of selected friends can contact me, and even fewer know what I'm up to. When I was alerted that an unknown AirTag, which I immediately knew where it came from, was following me, I was furious. I called my father and confronted him, asking where he hid it. He was surprised I found out and refused to tell me where it was. I eventually found the AirTag purposely hidden under my car, glued to a magnet. We just had a conversation about this issue of his today. We had it almost every week, to be honest, and I was starting to open up to him. Then I come home to find this AirTag, and I honestly just want to disappear and never see him again. Which I wouldn't, but it's just how I feel. Am I overreacting? Am I the a-hole? Additional info. I've been living away from home since my early 20s. I just moved back to my hometown due to work, and my dad was expecting me to stay with him to make up for lost time. We've gone through arguments when I wanted to live alone, settling for weekly visits. Now I will only visit him once I'm feeling comfortable doing so. No, not overreacting. Anyone. I would be upset if it was anyone even as trusted as one of my parents or relatives put an air tag on me tracking me. No, not the a-hole. It sounds like this person, this father, is just kind of lonely. Probably, I don't think he makes any friends of his own and really relies on the daughter visiting for any kind of social interaction and kind of gloms onto her. No, not the a-hole. Definitely not. Story 2. They're not my kids and not my problem. About a month ago, I found out both of my children were the results of my soon-to-be ex-wife's affairs. I've had a feeling for a while now that both of them weren't mine. 6 years ago, when my son was born, I was the happiest I'd ever been in my entire life. I had married my best friend, we had a child together, and everything seemed amazing. That was until he started getting older. After a few years, I started to have doubts that he was actually mine. He did not look like my child. The more he started to grow, the more I realized just how different he looked compared to what I would expect a child of mine to look like. I'm not petty or paranoid enough to let that alone drive me. It was my cheater of a wife that really set my alarms off. Whenever she went out, she never went where she said she did. She would have huge holes in her schedule she could never explain to me. She would refuse to allow me to interact with anyone from her workplace, and a close friend of hers accused her of flirting with her significant other at the time. It did not help that soon after our son was born, her lies started to catch up with her. Still, though, I loved her like the fool I was. She told me up and down how much she loved me whenever one of her lies caught up with her. She had convinced me that despite the fact she was a lying and manipulative woman, that she wasn't a lying, manipulative cheater. Last year, she got pregnant again, and I still held out a small bit of hope that it was mine. But when her daughter was born, it was obvious she was mixed race. I refused to sign the birth certificate, and the paternity test I demanded afterwards proved my suspicions right all along. Neither of them were mine. The day I got those test results were the day I filed for divorce from that cheater and walked away from the family I'd created. I knew that it would destroy her son's life to see me walk out. Despite my concerns, I was the best dad I could be to him. I loved him with all my heart and put in 110% into being the father he deserved. Now, though, when I see him, I'm filled with disgust. Disgust for my cheater of a wife, disgust with myself for not trusting my instincts, and disgust that the last 6 years of my life have been for nothing. I've been told by multiple people now that I'm a monster for leaving my son like this. My ex has tried on multiple occasions since I moved out to use him to guilt me into getting back with her. She will have him call me at random hours of the night crying and begging for his daddy to come back. The day I moved out, she paraded him into the room as I packed my things to show me how much damage I am doing. In every conversation that he has brought up, both online and off, I'm berated and shamed. That despite the fact that I am not the boy's biological father, I am his dad. What I have sadly now realized is that, to most, my own feelings mean nothing. My parents are my only supporters through all of this, with my own siblings calling me a despicable person for abandoning a child like that. My feelings of betrayal and sadness mean nothing, because a child is involved. I know it's not his fault. I know that the man he called his father for his entire life just walked away. But why am I expecting to man up? Why should I have to pretend everything is fine and I don't feel contempt for this entire situation? Why should I put my own life and feelings aside? I never was the boy's father. I loved him like one, and honestly still do. But I would come to hate and contempt him if I had to play the role. hate myself for not standing up and taking my own life back into my own hands. He is not my child, and even though it's not his fault, he's not my problem anymore. I completely can understand the anger that someone would feel after discovering that this life that they have cherished is not theirs. There's a lot of anger, and there's even more anger when no one seems to take that into account in judging him. I do think it's a little bit, I do think it's harsh. This is a 6-year-old child. It is kind of harsh. Also, where is the real father in all of this? And, this is also not taking into account all the legal proceedings that are probably going to happen in court after all of this. Is it possible that he could be forced to pay child support through all of this? And what about, what has the mom said about all this? Has he tried to explain? Has she tried to explain to the child what's going on? Has anyone tried to? It's a big mess. He is kind of a jerk for abandoning this kid as completely as it is. But there's like a big battle in the future. There's a lot that's going to take place. It could end up very differently.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 1. Am I the a-hole for calling off my wife's birthday party after she lied? I'm prefacing this by saying that I, male 38, have a daughter, Sandy, female 16, with an incredibly sensitive personality and loves to help people. We come from a well-off background compared to her friends, so for the past few months, she's been doing some charity work. She cut her hair and donated it to cancer patients, pawned her things and sold some of her expensive clothes, shoes, and/or gave them away to help out friends and other families. Now she wears thrift shop clothes, which is something my wife isn't so happy with. She thinks that Sandy was painting a bad picture of us as neglectful parents and giving a false impression to people that we're poor, when in fact we're doing well financially. I admit my wife is all about appearances, and recently I started noticing that she's been excluding Sandy from events and gatherings because of how she dresses. I talked to her about it, and she said it was all in my head. But last week was my wife's birthday. We celebrated at a restaurant, and I asked my wife to get Sandy and meet me there, although at first she hinted that if Sandy refused to dress properly, then she wouldn't bring her. But I told her that if she didn't bring her, then we'd have an issue and the party would be called off. We waited, and then I saw my wife walk into the restaurant by herself. I was mad. I'm not going to lie. I asked her where Sandy was, and she told me she didn't feel like coming, even though she talked about how excited she was for this party. I just had this gut feeling that my wife was lying, so I texted Sandy, and sure enough, my wife gave her an ultimatum saying either she had to wear something that matches our class or she wouldn't be allowed to come to her birthday where her friends and family are gathered. I went and called Sandy outside, and she was crying. I was furious. I walked inside the restaurant and picked up an argument with my wife and told her family and friends exactly why Sandy wasn't there. My wife looked shocked. She started arguing with me, and I ended up calling off the entire event and having everyone else leave early. My wife literally started yelling at me at the restaurant, so I took my stuff and went home. She got back and kept yelling at me for ruining her birthday and making a scene and humiliating me in front of her friends and family. She said that Sandy was acting stubborn and that's on her, but I told her she acted unreasonably by excluding her like that. Sandy was crying because of it, and I felt like this was too big to look over, despite my wife saying that it wasn't a big deal and ruined her birthday for no reason. She went to stay with her family and won't even reply to my text. She just reads them but doesn't respond, probably expecting me to apologize for what happened. Am I the a-hole? Did I go too far? I would say, what if you just decided to hold your tongue and let the birthday party happen with her there? Sandy would have probably been kind of devastated, probably felt hurt that this kind of thing was allowed to happen. This woman lied, and I think she got a warning ahead of time from this guy. Said if she's not there, we're going to have an issue. Plus the fact that she kind of lied to cover it up. Maybe a little too far, but really not by much. This woman was warned, and she's kind of really being stuck up about this. Story 2. Healthcare executive hates her own policy. This happened years ago. I'm an OB/GYN in a busy suburb of San Francisco. One of my patients was the vice president of a large health insurance corporation. She was a dynamic executive who climbed the corporate ladder quickly. One of her special talents was reducing healthcare benefits for patients. She initiated a policy where women who underwent cesarean section would be discharged in 2 days rather than the standard 4-day hospital stay. Shortly after having in vitro fertilization, she found herself pregnant with twins. During one of her office visits, I mentioned the new 2-day policy. I told her that for some patients it was really rough to be discharged after major surgery in 2 days and be expected to care for a newborn infant. She just smiled and said that she didn't get where she was in corporate America by giving away money, and patients just needed to suck it up. Health insurance wasn't meant to be a convenience. She was 42 years old and went to full term with her twins. Despite her age, she elected to attempt a vaginal delivery because of the quick recovery. Her labor was long and extremely difficult and ended with a cesarean section. On day 2, I went to her room to complete her discharge from the hospital. She said, "I'm not leaving. This is inhuman. You can't expect me to go home and take care of twins like this. I can barely walk. All you need to do is write a note in the chart that says I'm having a complication. My stay will be authorized." I told her that would be fraud, and I wouldn't be willing to falsify a medical record. Anyway, about a year later, the state of California forced them to reverse the policy. Oh, so completely the literal illustration of the phrase, rules for thee, not for me. It just goes to show that stuff that is critical for people, services like health insurance, services that are meant to help people, are reduced to number crunching. And she just got a taste of her own medicine, almost literally being in a hospital. And thankfully, that policy was reversed. Story 3. Because some people mistook us for a bank and complained, the corporation changed the policy on $50 bills and $100 bills. Despite the big bold sign written in such a way that even the North Sentinelese could understand it, almost everyone with 50s and 100s thinks they don't need no stinking bank and will just go to us to get that big bill broken down. Well, it keeps wiping out our tills when they raise a fuss and eventually they call corporate. Their response was to have us rescind the policy and carry more money in the tills. Obviously, they've never worked a till in their lives. Otherwise, they would know why we don't carry disgusting amounts of money in the register. But they didn't tell us we needed 20s and 10s. So we decided to start some malicious compliance. We go to the bank, and their mouths twist into a grin like that of a midnight lichen rock when we tell them. We get dozens of 5s and 1s. And wait. First fracker walks in and smugly places down a $100 bill. His change is $95. Here we go. I started singing the Schoolhouse Rock song. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. He gets 19 $5 bills. He asks where the 20s are, and I tell him we're out. People keep paying with 50s and 100s and wipe out the 10s and 20s. Second fracker comes in and pays for a 50-cent cookie with a 50. When he gets 9 5s, he says he wants 20s. I informed him that he could always go to a bank. This continues for 4 more frackers. Take that. Very good. That is malicious compliance at its best. And you can always state it's a very good reason. Yeah, people keep coming to us to break down the bills, and we run out of the bills that you want, so you're getting 5s and 1s. Could you imagine running out of 5s and getting change back in 1s off of this? Also, good on them, but make sure you count those suckers out right and make sure the till evens out, definitely. I mean, definitely be very good with, flaunting the policy, but definitely cover yourself and count. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to bring my nanny family's baby back home? I, 27 female, have been a nanny for the same family for about 6 months now. It's a 1-year-old baby girl, and she is the sweetest baby ever. I thought the family was really nice and that we had a good working relationship, until yesterday. I always take the baby on walks, either around the neighborhood, or we walk down to this cool shopping center where they have a little fountain and a bubble tea shop we like to hang out at. There's toys and games, and she always has fun there. We walked down to the bubble tea shop yesterday, and we're playing as usual. We're usually out for like an hour, when it started raining. It drizzled a bit, so we went inside the shop to wait it out before walking back, and then it started pouring, like storming. It was awful. It rained for so long. I texted the mom saying, "Hey, it's raining really bad, so we're just going to wait it out, but we're at the bubble tea shop." She told me it was almost the baby's nap time and that I needed to head home now like usual. I asked her if she had looked out the window to see how bad it was raining, and she said, "Yes, baby has a cover for their stroller. She'll be fine. Please head back." I told her the baby has a cover, but I don't have an umbrella or jacket, and I'll get soaked, and will have to finish out my shift soaking wet. I asked if she or her husband could just come pick us up, and she said it's my job to do what she says. I told her I was not walking back in the rain. After an hour, yes, it kept raining, her husband came and picked us up, apologizing, saying he was sleeping and didn't know we were out here in the rain. When we got back, Mom screamed at me, saying how dare I not bring her baby home when she told me to, and accused me of kidnapping. Dad said she was being dramatic, but didn't really do much. She threatened to fire me and told me not to come in today and that we will discuss everything Monday. Was I wrong for not coming back? It was pouring. I didn't want to have to sit in soaked clothes for hours. My hair would get ruined. I didn't want to get sick. There's so many reasons I didn't want to be in the pouring rain. Plus, it didn't feel that safe. I guess if I'm wrong, I'll apologize Monday, but my boyfriend said she's being unreasonable and can't fire me for that. I feel like I should quit. I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Boyfriend says she can't fire me for that because of my contract. She has to give me notice, 6 weeks, if she doesn't want me to work for her anymore, or else she has to pay me for the time I'm missing. I also did check the weather, but it said it was raining way later that night. The sun was shining when we left. Mom also asked me to take her on these walks daily. I enjoy them, but a lot of comments keep talking about these walks as if they're for me. And yes, it was a thunderstorm. Not really the a-hole. You did check the weather. I think this mom is being really unreasonable, especially if there was a cover for the baby and you want her to walk her home. If anything happens with that cover, if it was raining that hard and that baby, if that stroller gets soaked or anything at all, I think that mom would have still come down on the nanny hard. The father seems kind of reasonable, but still kind of ineffective. It seems like the mom is the one that calls the shots in that household. I don't think she's the a-hole at all. What do you think? Story 2. What do you mean I can't drive my car? I've been a mechanic my entire working life so far, and this is one of my favorite experiences. I had a customer come in complaining about a vibration. I put the vehicle on the lift and checked the front end. I found a nearly broken tie rod and a faulty rack and pinion. So basically, the passenger side front wheel was not secured to the steering system and would soon break and cause the wheel to be completely disconnected from the steering. I told the customer how much the repair would be and told her it was unsafe to drive. She asked me to put it back together so she could leave. I told her that I couldn't do that because if it broke after I let her leave, I could be held liable. She started yelling and screaming about calling the cops and suing me, and how her cousin's brother knows a guy who's related to the chief of police and I'll be arrested. She called the police and they came out. I showed the officers the vehicle and they understood the safety concern. They told me to just put the car down and let her leave. I did, and even made her sign a statement declining crucial safety repairs. She left with the most "ha-ha, told you so" smug grin on her face. Until she left the property, got pulled over, and her car impounded. They also gave her a ticket for reckless driving. I was so happy seeing her car get towed. Edit for clarification, the cops told her it was against the law to drive it. The state laws back then allowed me to do exactly what I did. I offered to discount the price of the repair and take payments. She still refused. And I don't care how well-versed you think you are in the law. You don't know when or where this took place. And no, I won't tell you what state I'm in because I've already had several people message me saying they're going to try and find my shop just to harass and blast me. I understand that people feel wary of car mechanics and getting ripped off and everything, but I don't know, maybe you could have shown them. Maybe you could have shown this person how broken this thing is, maybe compared to another system, to another car and their front passenger wheel. But yeah, I guess the cops just really wanted to bait and switch this person and wait till she got off the property and pull her over. Geez. You know, good for just being patient and talking to the cops and explaining things carefully. Not liable. Story 3. You don't want veggies in your chicken soup? Got it, kids. Kids are awesome at malicious compliance. But it's a two-way street. My kids can be picky eaters at times. My wife made some damn good chicken soup, but the kids were complaining that there were veggies in their chicken soup. They hate veggies. Veggies make them sick, and they wanted my wife to pick them out of the soup. We tried to tell them that good chicken soup needs veggies to taste good, but they were being stubborn. I'm sure other parents can understand. I told the kids, if you really hate the taste of veggies, I'll make soup tomorrow, and you guys can make sure I only put stuff in you like. They liked that idea. At the time. The next day, I got the pot filled with water, all the typical soup ingredients out, and gathered the kids. I asked for their approval on every item. Chicken? Yes. Salt? Yes. Black pepper? No. Gross, too spicy. Celery? No. I can't even stand the smell. Onions? No. It went on with that, with them rejecting parsley, bay leaves, and other veggies. The total contents of the pot ended up being chicken, water, salt, noodles. After the soup was done cooking, I served it up, and they excitedly started to eat. A few funny faces later, and one of them says, "It tastes weird. This isn't very good." I said, "But I only put in everything you guys approved. I think from now on, I should make the soup, right?" They looked at each other and said, "Can we have Mom's soup instead?" Since that day, they haven't complained about finding veggies mixed in the food. Sure, they almost always eat around a carrot or green pea, but they understand that it adds flavor. Good parenting right there. Get them involved. Show them what goes into making the soup. And let them see and taste what happens when you don't put everything in that makes it taste good. Great example here. Excellent. Way to go.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 1. Would I be the a-hole if I reported a family friend who outed my pregnancy to her place of work? I, 20 female, recently found out that I'm pregnant, which came as a surprise because I'm on birth control. I made an appointment with an OB that's close to me with high ratings to confirm the pregnancy, and when I walked in, I was immediately concerned because the woman behind the desk is a friend of my mom's. They're not super close, I hadn't seen her in years, but they've known each other since high school and they sort of keep in touch, I know. I didn't feel ready to tell anyone other than my boyfriend and obviously doctor about the baby, so I was freaking out a little. But my boyfriend assured me that she wouldn't be able to say anything to my mom about the baby without my consent. When I got home, my mom was waiting for me because she already knew about the baby. Apparently, her friend had texted to congratulate her before I could even make it home. Everything is going to be okay, and my mom is being supportive. But honestly, I'm ticked at this lady, and I want to report her to the OB. My family is supportive of the baby, but if she had opened her big mouth to someone with a different kind of family, the outcome could have been really bad. My boyfriend agrees with me, but thinks it's kind of Karenish. On the other hand, my mom thinks her friend crossed a few lines, but to report her and potentially put her employment at risk would be petty and an a-hole move. I think mom's friend is an a-hole, and a potentially dangerous one at that. Would I be the a-hole for reporting her big mouth to her employer? ETA. It's been asked a few times, so adding that I'm in the US. Edit 2. I wrote it in a comment, but I'll add it here too. I'm going to report tomorrow morning when the office is open, since right now it's the after-hours answering service. I'm going to make sure they know that nothing bad happened in my situation, so I'm just reporting out of concern for past or future patients. And my goal isn't to have her fired. Just make sure they know the situation and can handle however they see fit. I reported her first thing this morning. She was the one who answered, and I said I had to talk to my OB, but she couldn't come to the phone right then and called me back 20 minutes later. I explained the situation. She thanked me for telling her and said that they take matters like this very seriously and will be looking into it immediately. I doubt they'll let me know what happens, but if I do hear anything, I'll update again. Thanks so much, everyone. She is talking about concern about if this person divulges information to someone in a more sensitive position. But each time she's talking about reporting, she's talking about how ticked she is at this person. It's kind of 50-50, sort of half an a-hole-ish move. If nothing bad happened to her, she could have just let it go. I can't see her mind personally. If she's genuinely interested that this person's behavior could affect other people, I can understand why she'd want to report it. And thinking about it, if the mom wasn't supportive, I think we'd be on her side if she reported this person's behavior. So maybe quarter to half an a-hole move on this, maybe. What do you think?
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.